Okay, so let's continue with Norcal Corner and the wage gap.
And for the record, it's been illegal to pay a woman less for the exact same work for over 50. Oh, straw man. Such a straw man.
I have to ask the question, how exactly is pointing out a law that's been on the books since the 60s a straw man? Norcal, with all due respect, mate, I don't think you understand what a straw man is. But to be fair, I think there's a lot of people on the internet who don't. Now, let's continue.
It's been illegal to pay. Do you really think capitalism and a lot of employers actually fucking care? I mean,
okay, there is a huge difference between something being against the law and someone illegally breaking that law, as opposed to something being legal and being systematic. Now, yes, there are arsehole employers who rip off their workers. No doubt about that. I even gave an example in an earlier video in this series where some Indian students were in Melbourne and working at a subway, and they were being taken advantage of by their employer. He got his ass kicked, by the way, because, as I pointed out, it's illegal to do so. Yeah, now, sure, just because something is illegal does not mean that some assholes won't do it. But, once again, that is very different than something being systematic and legal and affecting only one demographic. For example, women. If you're going to say some employers rip off some employees, I would agree, some of them do. If you were to say that employers rip off only female employees and that is systematic, I'm going to call bullshit. Now, do you not see the difference between these two things?
We're talking about the same system in which a corporation like Urban Outfitters wants people to work for free during the holidays. It's illegal, yes, but they don't care. In fact, if they could get away with it, they would basically, wouldn't pay anybody shit.
I think the key word here is if they could get away with it.
But it's the whole idea that it's been illegal. Bourgeois law does not fucking matter. It only is as good as, it's only as good as the working class lets it. It's only as good as the working class allows it to function. And, and basically prevents it from any sort of inequality from basically counteracting that law. But once the ruling class, once the capitalist class wants to subvert that, they will put up any means to their disposal to do that. So, I mean, how many times have we seen capitalism, have we seen the employer win out on this one? Whether it's through an actual legal court battle, or whether it's just through or whether it's through the financial burden of the employer or of the employee. Again, a lot of times these people that file these lawsuits against a certain company, especially a big corporation, a lot of times the financial sum that they're seeking is just completely trumped by the amount of legal fees and the amount of money that just goes into fighting against this corporation. So,
okay, so let's consider this point for a second. Let's assume that Norcal is correct, and I imagine in some cases this would be the case. That if you are an individual, an employee, and you're going up against a huge corporation which has an army of lawyers, then not only would that be incredibly intimidating, it might bankrupt you. I can understand this, right? I think in some cases this may be a legitimate point. But the wage gap doesn't state that only big corporations are paying women less for exactly the same work. They claim, the proponents of the wage gap claim, that it is systematic, that it is across the Western world. So that would mean that small companies, small family-run businesses, would also be doing the same, right? And surely they don't have an army of lawyers? I imagine if you were an employee of a small company which was surviving from month to month, as a lot of small companies do, that your employers would really prefer to avoid any legal action which may cost them a lot of money, either in lawyer fees or with a big payout at the end. So why aren't women suing these companies, for a start? And why aren't major feminist organisations raising funds for a class action suit against a big corporation? Imagine the publicity in the media it would get. I'm sure if it was systematic across the board that women were all getting paid less for exactly the same work, that many women would be willing to put into a war chest to fund some legal action to get that changed. You know, you topple a couple of the big guys and everyone else is sure to start following suit out of fear. They could be next after all. You know, big payout plus legal fees. That can cost the company a lot, especially a small company.
It doesn't really matter. To bring up the idea of the illegality of paying women less doesn't matter, because they're still going to, the system is still going to find ways to subvert it, and they already have found ways to subvert it, and that's why we're trying to fight against those subversions.
So the system has only decided to pay women less. Instead of paying everyone less, they've just decided all at once to go, hey, why don't we just pay women less? Wow, the world is really sexist. Meanwhile, in reality, yes, if an employer could get away with paying someone less, and in most cases they probably would, but to suggest that they only do this to women is just fucking ludicrous. Once again, it makes the assumption that they're perfectly okay to pay men normally, but when it comes to women, they're willing to break the law and pay them less. It doesn't really make sense, does it?
The legal loopholes that are within some of these laws is just unfathomable. So...
But you're suggesting that these legal loopholes either exclusively affect women or mainly affect women. Why exactly is that?
And saying that it's been illegal to pay women less for the exact same work for over 50 years now, those labor laws, again, we've had to, in which you had to see groups like the AFL-CIO and other labor unions step in more and more, fighting against corporations, filing lawsuits, the ACLU getting involved in some of these things, fighting against these corporations and these businesses and these draconian bully tactics that some companies and employers use against other people. It's just it's striking. It's just absolutely striking. So you're playing on this whole thing as if the legal system works, as if the bourgeois legal system works, and as if everything will just be solved if you have faith in the system.
Well, I find this rather interesting, because Norkel Corner is giving examples of exactly what I've said. Organisations or individuals using the law to take companies who try to rip them off to task. Apparently unions can do this when it's people in general, but for some unknown reason, according to feminist logic, they're unable to do it for women. Why exactly is that? Why isn't there unions or feminist organisations or whoever fighting for the supposed women who are illegally being paid less for exactly the same work? Where are they? Why isn't there mass class actions going on? Why aren't the unions doing something about this? Why aren't feminist organisations raising money for a war chest? I mean, they talk about it a lot in the media, but why aren't they doing something in the courts? If it's against the law, as I've pointed out and as you agree, why aren't they doing something about it? Do you know why they're not doing something about it? Because it's bullshit.
And I'm sorry, but that's a very anarcho-capitalist thing to say. I mean, you come off as very, no offense, dude, but you come off as very ANCAP, as, you know, as if there's nothing wrong with the way the system is. And that's the problem with a lot of these, with some of these men's rights movement activists, is that they are very libertarian, they are very ANCAP. And they just have this belief that, you know, we need to have. They almost come off as this type of these types of people where they have such faith in this capitalist system, but yet they want, you know, but they want the capitalist economic system, but they want an anarchist form of. They want an anarchist form of government. So,
okay, so I'll deal with the ANCAP accusation in a later video, because coincidentally he's not the only one who's made that accusation towards me for some reason. Yeah. And as for the claim that we don't think there's anything wrong with the system, then why do we talk about the sentencing gap? Why do we talk about fathers' parental rights? We obviously do think there are faults in the system, and we're dealing with those faults. We're bringing attention to those faults. However, that has absolutely nothing to do with the claim that women are getting paid less than men. Once again, there are faults in the system. There are people who take advantage of it and break the law. There are bad employers, no doubt about that. But the wage gap claims that for some reason they only do it to women, or mainly do it to women, as opposed to all workers, and it's systematic across the board. And this claim is absolute fucking bullshit. Not to mention that a lot of feminists claim that they do this legally, which is also fucking bullshit.
So you basically want a relatively stateless, classless society but you want a system of statism, classism, and exploitation for profit.
To respond to this claim, I think the best thing I can do is to use a clip from earlier in this video. Take it away, NorCal.
Oh, straw man. Such a straw man.
So, last episode I made a mistake. Yeah, I know, I'm not perfect. I apparently had a bit of a brain fart when I was reading out the statistics for hours worked, and read them out as percentages as opposed to hours. Thanks for those of you who pointed it out to me. This, however, does not change my conclusion that men work longer hours than women on average. In fact, it actually strengthens that conclusion. So I thought I'd just put this little correction at the end.
Oh, straw man. Such a straw man. Oh, straw man. Such a straw man.